Washington has pulled the plug on India's Chabahar lifeline. The Trump administration has revoked the 2018 sanctions waiver for the Iran port project, effective September 29th, threatening India's only direct gateway to Afghanistan and Central Asia. It's a double blow. Alongside fresh US drug trafficking accusations and steep tariffs, is America turning a strategic partner into a target? The Trump administration has announced it will withdraw the sanctions waiver for Iran's Chabahar port, a project being developed by India. The waiver, first granted in 2018 during Trump's initial term, will now end, bringing the port under full US sanctions from September 29th. While this move seems to be aimed at Iran, it will adversely impact India, which has been developing the port along with Iran in accessing Afghanistan and Central Asia. Sources told the Indian Express that this is a major setback for India's plans to develop the strategically located port, close to the Chinese-developed Gwadar port in Pakistan. The US State Department's principal deputy spokesperson Thomas Pigott, in a statement, said,
"Consistent with President Trump's maximum pressure policy to isolate the Iranian regime, the Secretary of State has revoked the sanctions exception issued in 2018 under the Iran Freedom and Counterproliferation Act, IFCA, for Afghanistan reconstruction assistance and economic development, effective September 29, 2025. Once the revocation is effective, persons who operate the Chabahar port or engage in other activities described in IFCA may expose themselves to sanctions under IFCA."
The US had exempted the Chabahar port project from sanctions in 2018, saying the Secretary has provided for an exception from the imposition of certain sanctions under the Iran Freedom and Counterproliferation Act of 2012, IFCA, with respect to the development of Chabahar port and the construction of an associated railway and for the shipment of non-sanctionable goods through the port for Afghanistan's use, as well as Afghanistan's continued imports of Iranian petroleum products. However, with the new guideline, these exemptions will be removed. Chabahar is a deep-water port located in the Sistan-Baluchistan province of Iran. It is the closest Iranian port to India and is located in the open sea, providing easy and secure access for large cargo ships. India will be impacted by this decision as it is involved in the development of a terminal at the Chabahar port on the Gulf of Oman. On May 13, 2024, India signed a 10-year contract to operate the port that will help it expand trade with Central Asia. This was the first time India would take over the management of an overseas port. New Delhi had proposed to develop Chabahar port way back in 2003 to provide Indian goods a gateway to reach landlocked Afghanistan and Central Asia using a road and rail project called the International North-South Transport Corridor, bypassing Pakistan. US sanctions on Iran over its suspected nuclear program had slowed the development of the port. The long-term agreement was signed by Indian Ports Global Limited, IPGL, and the Port and Maritime Organization of Iran. It replaces an initial 2016 pact which covered India's operations at Shahid Beheshti Terminal in Chabahar Port and had been renewed on an annual basis. In 2023, Chabahar Port was used by India to send 20,000 tons of wheat aid to Afghanistan. In 2021, the same was used to supply environmentally friendly pesticides to Iran. Washington cited the port's growing commercial and strategic relevance to Iran and broader concerns over what the US calls illicit financial flows tied to Tehran's military and defense networks. The US Treasury on September 16th had sanctioned over a dozen Iranian individuals and entities in Hong Kong and the UAE, accused of moving money to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. The announcement marks a shift in how Washington now views the port. Originally, the waiver was justified by Chabahar's role in supporting Afghanistan's reconstruction under an elected government. With the Taliban now in control, and India recently signing a 10-year agreement to expand the port and integrate it into the International North-South Transport Corridor, INSTC, US officials believe the port may serve as a commercial lifeline for Tehran. The Indian government has not yet responded to the development, but the MEA has maintained that Chabahar is a vital connectivity project that enhances regional trade. Earlier, on September 17th, Trump named China, India, Afghanistan and Pakistan among 23 major drug transit or major illicit drug-producing countries. The US Embassy in New Delhi followed it up on September 18th and revoked and subsequently denied visas for certain business executives and corporate leadership of India in accordance with Section 221, Section 212A, 2C, and 214B of the Immigration and Nationality Act of the US, making the individuals and their close family members ineligible for travel to America. The US Embassy in New Delhi said that it was further flagging executives connected with companies known to have trafficked fentanyl precursors for heightened scrutiny if and when they apply for visas. The US Embassy reiterated that stopping the flow of fentanyl and its precursors is among Washington's top security priorities. It also acknowledged New Delhi's cooperation on the issue. Fentanyl is a highly potent synthetic piperidine opioid primarily used as an analgesic, but also abused as a narcotic substance. A 2020 report by the US Drug Enforcement Administration noted that India was emerging as a source for finished fentanyl powder and fentanyl precursor chemicals. A report by the United States intelligence community released in March 2025 identified India and China as state actors, often directly or indirectly enabling the non-state actors as sources of precursors and equipment for drug traffickers. On March 20th this year, senior executives of an India-based pharmaceutical firm were charged in a federal court in Washington, D.C. for allegedly conspiring to send 4 metric tons of a precursor chemical to the US and Mexico to be used in manufacturing fentanyl. Trump submitted a presidential determination to the US Congress on September 15th, designating 23 countries as major drug transit or major illicit drug-producing nations. India is one of the countries identified in the presidential determination as responsible for sourcing and transporting illicit drugs into the US. The relations between India and the US came under stress over the past few weeks after Trump had, on July 30th, announced a 25% tariff on all goods exported by India to the US. He had also slammed New Delhi for buying defense hardware and energy from Russia, despite the sanctions imposed on the former Soviet Union nation's special military operations in Ukraine. He had followed it up on July 31st by calling the economies of India and Russia dead. He had then announced on August 6th that an additional 25% duty would be levied on all US imports from India, thus totaling the tariffs at 50%. What also riled New Delhi was the US president's repeated claims that he had brokered a ceasefire between India and Pakistan when the two South Asian neighbours had gone to the brink of a war between May 7th and 10th. It remains to be seen how New Delhi reacts to Washington's move to end the Chabahar waiver, while slapping tariffs and branding India a major drug transit country, signalling a sharp chill in US-India ties. As New Delhi weighs its next steps, the question lingers. Will this strain push India to deepen ties with rivals like Russia and Iran? Or can the world's 2 biggest democracies still recalibrate their partnership?